Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
She vanished. No interviews, no red carpet, no final words for fans. One day, Dominique Thorne was Marvel's next billion-dollar face, and the next, she was gone, tracked on a private flight to Dubai just as rumors of a $120 million lawsuit began swirling. The woman who was supposed to be Marvel's future, the tech genius prodigy meant to carry Tony Stark's legacy, disappeared when the pressure hit its peak. But this wasn't just a career pivot, it looked like a full-blown escape. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. Within 72 hours of the Ironheart finale airing on Disney+, Thorne scrubbed her social media, pulled out of every scheduled appearance, and missed a high-profile Marvel panel she was contracted to attend.
Okay, I get that not everyone acts for this show, but some of the hate feels way over the top. Some people are calling it woke, some are just tired of new characters taking over, and others just think it looks bad.
At the same time, insiders began leaking whispers that Marvel's legal department was preparing to activate the rarely used morality clause hidden deep in her contract. Why? Because the studio believed Thorne's behavior, on set, in interviews, and during the show's implosion, had cost them a fortune in licensing, merchandise, and PR damage. And just as this nuclear-level fallout was building behind the scenes, Thorne allegedly booked a corporate-chartered flight to the UAE, where celebrities often go to vanish from the headlines. No TMZ, no press. It was the kind of move that screamed damage control, but from someone who may have already known what was coming. This wasn't a canceled show. This was a star running from a studio that wanted payback.
So in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slog.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused.
Dominique Thorne's fall didn't start with a plane ticket. It started with a promise that Marvel couldn't deliver. When Thorne was introduced as Riri Williams in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the media labeled her the next Iron Man. Marvel built her up as a symbol of progress, a Gen Z tech genius who could unite legacy fans and new viewers. Thorne was the centerpiece of Marvel's next phase, and Disney treated Ironheart as a flagship property. Millions were dumped into high-end CGI, press tours, and even rumors of crossovers with Spider-Man and Armor Wars. But as production dragged on, insiders began noticing cracks. Writers clashed with Thorne's creative demands, directors left meetings visibly stressed, and the final product? It reeked of behind-the-scenes chaos.
Does this mean I'm racist? Marvel's Ironheart reactions are in, but you're racist if you don't like it. Wait, what? You're racist if you don't like Ironheart? Is that true? She was introduced in the comics in 2016, so the character was essentially developed for woke content, yawn?
When Ironheart premiered on Disney+, the first episode teased potential. Gritty Chicago setting, Stark references, a young prodigy building tech out of scraps. But it all fell apart fast. Dialogue landed awkwardly, the tone shifted wildly between sitcom and melodrama. And worst of all, Thorne's performance felt flat. Viewers couldn't connect. What was meant to be Marvel's comeback quickly became a meme-fueled disaster. Reddit threads roasted the writing. TikToks mocked the acting. And by episode 4, over 60% of the audience had dropped off completely. Even Marvel diehards, fans who survived She-Hulk and Secret Invasion, walked away.
Was a massive disappointment in the ratings for them, certainly. We do know, when you go and you look at through these charts, the first couple days it was out, because we have 3 days of Ironheart in these numbers, just like we had 3 days of Daredevil in these numbers. And Daredevil in those first 3 days had over 300 million minutes watched, so...
What should have been a cultural moment turned into a massive embarrassment. And as the numbers collapsed, the backlash was just getting started. As Ironheart collapsed in real time, Dominique Thorne made the worst possible move. She didn't stay quiet. Instead of following the tried-and-true crisis playbook of silence and humility, Thorne lit the match herself. During an already tense press interview, she was asked about the negative reception to the show. Her response? A smirk, followed by a now infamous quote, "If they don't like genius Black women building tech, that's on them." At first glance, it sounded bold, defiant, maybe even empowering. But to fans, it came off as arrogant and dismissive. Social media erupted.
Understand why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full.
Fans who had been critical of the show's writing, pacing, and character development were suddenly accused of being bigots for simply expressing their disappointment. One Reddit user summed up the backlash perfectly. So we can't criticize bad writing now without being called racist? TikTok stitched her quote with eye rolls and sarcastic captions. Twitter threads labeled her the most unlikable lead in MCU history. And instead of pulling back, Thorne doubled down. In a follow-up podcast appearance, she accused longtime Marvel fans of being stuck in the Iron Man era and told critics to grow up. This wasn't just a PR misstep. It was a full-on rejection of the fanbase Marvel had spent years cultivating. Fan pages untagged her, cosplay accounts went silent, and some influencers even began calling for Marvel to recast her entirely.
You could tell when she said stepdad that it was going to be about black people.
Y'all are just weird. Majority of the criticisms that I'm seeing about Ironheart have absolutely nothing to do about the actual series itself, but rather the casting and the subject matter. And now I already know some people are going to say, oh, you can't criticize shows like this without being accused of something. Well, actually, yes, you can.
The audience didn't just dislike her now, they felt disrespected. And the more she spoke, the worse it got. Quick pause. If you're into Hollywood chaos, celebrity vanishing acts, and the kind of behind-the-scenes drama Marvel really doesn't want you to know about, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next meltdown. We dig up the receipts so you don't have to. What fans saw online was just the surface. Behind the scenes, the Ironheart production was reportedly a full-scale meltdown, with Dominique Thorne at the center of the chaos. According to multiple insider leaks, Thorne wasn't just difficult. She was described as unmanageable. It started subtly, tweaking lines, suggesting alternative takes, questioning wardrobe choices. But it escalated fast.
Dominique Thorne is back as brilliant engineer Riri. Is that right? Riri Williams.
Thorne allegedly rejected entire scripts, demanded rewrites on key scenes, and even tried to veto cameos from legacy characters, saying they distracted from Riri's narrative. One producer claimed that every creative meeting felt like a war. Crew members described a toxic environment where rehearsals were skipped, table reads delayed, and production timelines thrown into disarray. Dominique reportedly brought in her own acting coach from New York, paid more than some department heads, and allegedly refused to take direction from anyone else. Entire episodes had to be restructured to fit her demands. The budget ballooned, reshoots piled up, and the final product felt like a stitched-together mess, missing any emotional core.
Do you think Ironheart will shift the narrative for the coming generations?
Yikes. I love that lyric. Looks like us, you know what I mean? Long nails, long hair, popping out here.
Even Marvel's internal review team reportedly flagged the series as tonally inconsistent and narratively flat. But Thorne wasn't done. According to leaks, she demanded creative consultant credit on Season 2 before Season 1 had even finished airing. The studio was floored. They weren't seeing a visionary. They were watching a rookie actress trying to seize control of a billion-dollar franchise without earning it. By the time filming wrapped, Marvel had already made their decision. Season 2 wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. The cost wasn't worth it. The aftermath wasn't messy, it was surgical. As Ironheart limped across the finish line, Marvel executed what looked like a quiet erasure of both the show and its star. There was no press tour, no fanfare, no final thank you post from Dominique Thorne. Instead, everything went silent. Marvel pulled the plug on mid-season trailers, canceled red carpet appearances, and even skipped the usual social media blitz that accompanies a major MCU release. Behind closed doors, executives were already moving to distance the brand from the disaster. Thorne was quietly removed from internal promo decks. Licensing deals that were meant to spin off Ironheart into toys, animated shows, and Young Avengers crossover content were shelved. Marvel insiders confirmed what fans suspected. Season 2 was off the table, not because of budget cuts, not even because of poor ratings, but because the studio simply could not risk another chaotic shoot with Thorne at the center. But then came the twist no one expected. Dominique Thorne wasn't just fading into the background, she had physically left the country. As fans began piecing together her sudden disappearance, a private jet tracking account flagged a suspicious flight, a late-night departure from New York under a corporate management agency tied to Thorne's team, landing in none other than Dubai. Not Los Angeles, not a quiet suburb. Dubai, the go-to haven for celebrities looking to go off the grid. No paparazzi, no press ambushes, no TMZ lurking outside hotels. It's the modern-day safe house for public figures in freefall. The timing was impossible to ignore. That same week, Marvel insiders began leaking details that legal teams were circling.
Iron Man just said he loves the Ironheart series, but for some reason, Marvel fans keep hating. So Marvel put out a video of a conversation between Robert Downey Jr. and Dominique Thorne. And in this conversation, Robert mentions how episode 3 is his favorite, and he also talks about how the Iron Man character and Ironheart character are pretty similar, calling them twin flames. But of course, when you look at the comments, fans are saying things like Marvel paid.
They weren't just cutting ties with Dominique, they were preparing to make her pay, not symbolically, with real legal action. Sources claimed Marvel had triggered a rarely invoked morality clause in her contract, a clause designed to protect the brand from reputational or financial damage caused by an actor's behavior. And with Ironheart's implosion, plummeting ratings, canceled merch deals, alienated fans, Marvel believed they had more than enough ammo to make it stick. The idea of Dominique hopping a private flight just as legal threats were surfacing wasn't just convenient, it looked calculated. Was she fleeing to get ahead of a lawsuit? Was it strategic silence to avoid inflaming the situation further? No one knew. But the image stuck. A disgraced lead actress, fresh off one of Marvel's most public failures, leaving the country just as the studio began preparing to make her the fall girl. And fans, sensing something massive was brewing, wanted answers Marvel refused to give. The number that broke the internet wasn't part of a box office total. It was a lawsuit figure, $120 million. That's what Marvel reportedly began pursuing as compensation for the disaster that was Ironheart. Not because Dominique Thorne personally pocketed that amount, but because the total loss, marketing, licensing, merch, spin-offs, and the now scrapped Young Avengers arc added up to a staggering figure. And Marvel, a company known for tightly controlled branding, wasn't willing to eat that loss quietly. Behind the scenes, legal teams began moving quickly. According to leaked emails, executives were compiling a comprehensive case to pin the collapse directly on Thorne. They were reportedly pulling transcripts of interviews, screenshots of social media posts, and logs of skipped promotional events. Every time she went off script, every insult aimed at fans, every delay in production tied to her demands, it all became part of the paper trail. The focus wasn't just the failed show, but the reputational damage she allegedly caused. Marvel's position was clear. Ironheart didn't fail because audiences were disinterested. It failed because Thorne became a liability no brand could justify keeping.
We're having conversations about something that you did not watch, which comes down to being racist and sexist, right? I think a lot of people had their opinion on her being black and portraying the next Tony Stark, Iron Man, Ironheart, and her being a woman.
They weren't just firing her, they were coming after her with a message loud enough to echo across Hollywood. If you sabotage our billion-dollar machine, we will make an example of you. While Thorne remained silent in Dubai, Marvel's lawyers reportedly delivered formal notice to her team, invoking the morality clause that's only been triggered in rare career-ending circumstances. This wasn't drama anymore. This was legal warfare. And in Marvel's eyes, Dominique Thorne wasn't a miscast rookie. She was now the architect of their biggest post-Endgame disaster. When Dominique Thorne finally broke her silence, it wasn't with a press conference or even a video. It was a bland Instagram story that somehow made everything worse. No video, no emotion, just a white background with black text. I recognize the importance of diverse storytelling and appreciate all fan perspectives. We're all growing together through this journey. That was it. No mention of Ironheart, no reference to the backlash. No acknowledgement of the $120 million legal firestorm erupting behind the scenes. Fans were stunned, and not in a good way. The statement was so sterile, so lacking in accountability, that it sparked a fresh wave of backlash. Reddit threads tore into the message for dodging any real responsibility. Even Marvel's few remaining fan pages began calling the apology embarrassing, with some comparing it to the infamous Fantastic Four rollout or worse. The half-hearted apology didn't stop the bleeding. It made it worse. It confirmed what many already suspected, that Thorne wasn't ready to face the consequences and that Marvel had officially moved on. By the time Marvel's silence turned deafening, the industry had already delivered its verdict. Dominique Thorne wasn't just sidelined, she was erased. Her name disappeared from Marvel's internal project decks. Licensing deals once pegged to Ironheart, Lego sets, animated tie-ins, merchandise lines, were shelved indefinitely or canceled outright. The Young Avengers storyline, which once revolved around her character as a tech-savvy successor to Tony Stark, was pulled from development. Even her likeness was reportedly removed from promotional materials, and one insider claimed Kevin Feige refused to even mention her in meetings. It wasn't just a quiet firing, it was scorched earth. Even among Thorne's former castmates, no one came to her defense publicly. Not a single co-star reposted the Ironheart finale. Not one Marvel account tweeted support. For a franchise that once billed her as the future of the MCU, the silence was thunderous. And while Marvel never publicly confirmed it, insiders began leaking whispers that Riri Williams had been quietly labeled non-canon, with the studio exploring ways to rework or completely reboot her character in the future. Dominique Thorne didn't just lose a role, she lost the right to be part of the story she was once supposed to lead. Now the only question left is whether Dominique Thorne can ever come back, or if she's become Hollywood's next permanent cautionary tale. For a moment, she was poised to be Marvel's breakout star, a bold new face for a fresh generation of superheroes. But after the collapse of Ironheart, the on-set controversies, the social media implosions, and her now infamous flight to Dubai, her future in the industry is hanging by a thread. Right now, Dominique sits in a kind of limbo, scrubbed from Marvel's roadmap, ignored by the press, rejected by the fans who once cheered her debut. No roles on the horizon, no public redemption arc in sight. The entertainment world is brutal, and in a billion-dollar franchise machine like the MCU, there's no room for stars who threaten the brand. The Ironheart debacle didn't just damage Thorne's career, it sent a chilling message through the industry. No matter how promising you are, how diverse the role, how big the launch, if you burn the house down, you won't be invited back.